Everyone around you has a goal attached to their education, a salary, a title, a certificate to hang on a wall. They took the course to get the promotion. They read the book to win the argument. They learned the skill because someone told them it would look good on a resume. And you have watched all of that with a quiet, genuine confusion. Because for you, that was never the point. You did not pick up that book to impress anyone. You did not fall down that research rabbit hole because someone told you to. You went there because something in you simply had to know. And here is what nobody tells you about that impulse. It is not a hobby. It is not a personality quirk. It is one of the most sophisticated things a human brain can do. So when did you first notice it? There was probably a moment early on when you realized you were different from other people in this specific way. The class ended and everyone else packed up their bags and you were still sitting there with a follow-up question. The conversation moved on and you were still turning the idea over in your mind hours later. You finished the documentary and immediately started looking up everything it had not told you. Not because you had to, because the not knowing felt like an itch you could not leave alone. Other people could let a question go unanswered. You never quite could. And somewhere along the way, somebody probably told you that you were overthinking it, that you needed to do something practical with all of that. That curiosity without a destination was a kind of indulgence. But here is what the science says about that. Your brain was not overthinking. It was doing exactly what it was built to do. Research published in 2014 found that when people are intrinsically interested in something, that intense curiosity activates the brain's reward and memory regions by triggering the release of dopamine. Science Direct. Not the dopamine of a sugar rush or a social media notification. A deeper, slower, more sustaining kind. The kind that consolidates what you have learned into long-term memory, that makes the information feel personally meaningful, that keeps you coming back to a subject not because you are rewarded for it, but because the learning itself is the reward. 4 decades of research guided by self-determination theory has found that intrinsic motivation, engaging with something because you find it genuinely interesting and inherently satisfying, consistently predicts enhanced learning, creativity, and psychological well-being. ResearchGate. In simple terms, the way you relate to knowledge is not accidental. It is a neurological profile, and it comes with real measurable advantages that most people never access because they are too busy learning for the wrong reasons. But here is where it gets complicated, because not all curiosity is the same, and this distinction matters more than it might seem. There is the curiosity that collects. It gathers facts like objects, fills shelves with half-finished books and half-completed courses, moves on before anything has truly landed. And there is the curiosity that digests. That sits with a single idea long enough to turn it over, to find its edges, to connect it to something already known, and feel the quiet satisfaction of a new understanding clicking into place. One is restlessness, wearing the mask of learning. The other is what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent his career studying, that state of deep, absorptive engagement he called flow, where time disappears and your thinking reaches a level of clarity and connection it simply cannot access any other way. You know this state. It is why you lose hours to a subject that nobody asked you to care about. It is not distraction. It is your mind operating at its highest register. Here is something fascinating about the specific way your brain processes new information. Neuroscientific evidence shows that people with a growth-oriented, learning-driven mindset demonstrate heightened connectivity between the brain regions responsible for error monitoring, behavioral adaptation, and cognitive control, making them more efficient at learning from setbacks and more receptive to new information. The travel psychologist. In other words, your appetite for learning does not just make you more knowledgeable. It makes you more mentally resilient, more adaptable, better at updating your beliefs when the evidence changes. That is not a small thing. In a world that is changing faster than most people can process, the ability to keep learning is not an advantage. It is a form of structural stability, and you have been building it quietly without anyone asking you to for most of your life. The travel psychologist. And yet, society has a word for people like you. Several of them, actually. Obsessive, distracted, Someone who knows a lot about a lot but never commits to anything? Those words assume that learning without a fixed destination is somehow less than learning with one. Here is a different frame entirely. The people who have genuinely moved the world forward were almost never the ones who learned only what was required. They were the ones who could not stop asking the next question, who followed curiosity into territories nobody had mapped yet, who connected ideas across fields that nobody thought to put in the same room. That is not aimlessness. That is the architecture of original thought. There is a word for what you actually are. Not scattered, not impractical. The word is intellectually alive. And there is a real difference between someone who is intellectually alive and someone who is merely well-informed. Well-informed is a destination. Intellectually alive is a way of moving. It means you do not stop at the answer. You notice the next question hiding inside it. It means a conversation is never just a conversation. It means a quiet afternoon with a book is one of the most genuinely full experiences your life contains. If you have spent any part of your life being told to do something useful with what you know, to monetize it, to justify it, to make it practical, I want you to say something to you directly. The impulse to understand the world more clearly than you found it is not something that needs a return on investment. It is not a phase you should have grown out of. It is one of the most fundamentally human things you do. And the fact that you do it not for applause, not for credentials, not because anyone is watching, but simply because the not knowing feels unfinished, that is not a weakness of focus. That is the purest form of intellectual integrity. Keep asking, keep digging. The world needs people who cannot stop. Leave a comment below. Tell me what subject you cannot stop learning about, no matter how impractical it seems. I read every single one.